Okay, when testing these Zeroplays to see if they are actually manufactured correctly, the first thing I do is I just put in the 3 hex bolts there and make sure this thing can slide back and forth easily. This one, even though it was left out in the rain and got rusted, well, my shop has roof that leaks, that's beside the point. That one slides back and forth pretty well. This one, however, it kind of catches at one end. And because of that, I'm thinking, if I just take a little sandpaper and sand the end of that groove, inside of that groove, it'll make it slide a little better. But it works good enough, so that's enough for step 1. Step 2, I'm going to put all the bolts inside here and see what that does. Okay, for step 2, you can see I just put these bolts in. They're not even finger tight. They're just all the way through. And now I want to see if this will still slide back and forth. And this one slides back and forth just fine, no issues at all. This one, however, it does still have a little catch. It kind of sticks a little bit. When I look at it, I can see that the bolt up here is kind of, let's see if we can focus in on that. Come on, focus. I'm not sure if it's going to focus, but if you can tell, this bolt here is kind of touching the side right there, so it makes it a little more difficult. There's a little, it's off by 1/1000th of an inch is all. So if I took a little sandpaper and sanded that groove down, I'm sure I could make it slide easier. But as is, it works both ways. So step 2 says, okay, the miter bar itself should be okay. Let's go to step 3. Okay, I put my Zeroplay into the miter slot. The 3 hex bolts are installed, but they're not tightened. Now I'm going to just slightly push these together until I get a good fit, and that seems to be a pretty good fit right there. So now I'm going to tighten down my hex bolts. Pretty simple. Okay, and now that they're tightened, what I'm going to do is slide my miter bar back and forth. And what I'm noticing right here is it slides it's almost loose at the top up here. In fact, I can feel it wiggle sideways back and forth here. But down at this end here, it's really very, very snug. And I think the reason for that is because these holes are just off by just a little bit. So I'm going to try sanding the sides of these here in a second and see if that smooths it out a bit. Okay, and by comparison, I'll put this miter bar in and adjust it also. That seems to be pretty good, and I'll tighten it down. Okay, now I'll slide it back and forth, and I don't see any catching at all, so this is how it should slide. It should slide easily all the way up and all the way back without any issues. This one, however, the one with the weird ends right there, it slides fine. No, it slides fine this way, but down at this end here, it really catches. So like I said, I think the problem is these holes are slightly out of position. There's a little extra plastic in there or something. I don't know. It's not quite right. So I'm going to try sanding these just real quick and see what that does. All right, I'm through sanding, and now I've readjusted my miter bar, and it now slides fine the whole way, and it doesn't rattle at the top or the bottom. So I'm pretty sure that that little gap right there, just that little extra bit of material on the side, this side here specifically, this side, the outside, had just a little extra material. At that point, you know what? You really have your choice. You can either replace the miter bar, send them back, and MicroJig will definitely send you a new one, or just take, a couple minutes of sanding. And all I did was I took some sandpaper, rolled it up like that, put my miter bar into a vise, and then just sanded it like that. It only took like 2.5, 3 minutes, I think that's a little better than waiting a couple of, a week for a new part, but that's just me. Okay, the next step is to affix the miter bar to this little block here. This is my fence setup gauge. So I'm going to attach the miter bar to that. When I attach it, however, I'm going to make sure that the brass fittings are facing up like that. And let's see what that does. Okay, I've attached my miter bar to my setup gauge. I just used this real small screwdriver here, so obviously I couldn't put too much pressure on them. I mean, they're just finger tight is all. They're snug. They're not overly cranked down, but they're snug. But also now this thing goes back and forth and it has no wiggle at all. So I'm betting that if you're having troubles with your Zeroplay not fitting in the slot, you probably have an issue with one of these little grooves having a little too much plastic in it. I hope this helps you troubleshoot your Zeroplay. Please let me know what you think.